And you sold a site in the barbecue niche for a healthy six-figure payout. When you're working at big sites like Forbes, I know it's not the only site that you've worked at.
Just tell them the fucking answer. That's what they want to hear. And really good SEOs, they're good at that.
So you've spoken a lot actually in the past about being hit by arrogant updates. How have you dealt with them yourself? What have been your most successful and effective kind of link building strategies?
A lot of people don't think it is, and they think it's a little scary doing that. But to me, I feel like it's the safest and effective.
I hired a guy, he was a journalist, he had like a journalist background, and he had an 80% success rate. How the hell do you handle all of this?
It's really impressive that you even brought that up. You've definitely done your homework. So I appreciate that. No one else has brought that up.
So you're a sales guy that opened an SEO agency after trying to write and rank copy. You ended up working for several companies, including being one of the SEO team leads at Forbes for several years. You currently work in-house as the SEO lead for one of the biggest B2C and B2B moving comparison sites in the world. And you sold a site in the barbecue niche for a healthy six-figure payout. So do you want to introduce yourself? Shawn Hill, ladies and gentlemen.
I feel like you just did a better job than I ever would. But yeah, I mean, it's been a fun journey, and here we are.
Awesome. So I think we'll just jump straight into things because I know a lot of people are going to be wanting to hear what you have to say, and that there's going to be a lot of differences in what you're going to be saying, right? Because you've got basically a kind of unique perspective where a lot of people don't really have the insights both into these massive corporate kind of mega websites, right? And also having an insight into starting a fresh blog from day one and building it up and selling it. So having kind of an industry-wide insight is a bit more of a unique insight that you have that a lot of people don't really have. So I want to start off with you working for Forbes. So when you're working at big sites like Forbes, I know it's not the only site that you've worked at. I know that you've worked at quite a few and that you're still working at one of the big ones now. How does the beginning of the process start, specifically at Forbes, but maybe for just in general? But how does the beginning of that process start? And is there someone specifically at Forbes kind of in charge of processing keywords and content, or are you just giving categories kind of quarterly and then just told to go and dominate them?
Yeah, so I mean, it really starts with just the planning side. A lot of the executives will kind of decide which categories we're going to go after. Sometimes, I'm involved in those and sometimes I'm not. And a lot of that has to do with the biz dev side and deals that they've already had, or areas where we've talked and, have found out that there is, a lot of money potential, right? That usually drives the decisions. And then from there, I mean, it is kind of put on the SEOs to go out and do the research of what type of content we should go after and all of the different keywords that we should hit. And then it kind of plans from there, where SEOs generally at Forbes were in charge of creating content briefs and sending that over to the editorial team and then continuing to update it from there. But kind of to the other point is we do have quarterly goals as well that we would have to hit. And those are usually, again, just brought down from executives, and it's kind of the overarching thing. And, it's kind of you have, metrics that you have to hit, right? So your KPIs that you're actually, reviewed on each quarter. And so, yeah, I mean, you're going after that goal. Usually you are pretty defined on which categories you're working on. I worked in the insurance space at Forbes, but even that, I only worked on a few of those insurance categories.
Yeah, so I don't want to too heavily focus on Forbes specifically, just because I know that you haven't worked there for a few years and that there's a lot of stuff that we want to cover. So before we get into your website, what do you think people in the SEO industry could take away from some of your sales knowledge? Because I know that you have a big background in sales, and that generally sales and SEO don't correlate too well together. Most SEOs aren't the best of salespeople. So are there kind of any knowledge bases or any points that you could give people who are in SEO to improve their own sales processes?
Yeah, one, I think it's really impressive that you even brought that up. You've definitely done your homework. So I appreciate that. No one else has brought that up. I think there's a huge correlation between really good sites and really good salespeople. A lot of times, like I was a mortgage loan officer, and I considered that sales as well. You would hear from other people when I was a team lead. You would listen back to these calls and give feedback, and you would hear people, like, as a consumer, ask, okay, great, what's the rate? And people would take that kind of defensively and, oh, well, we've got really good grades. We're the best out there. And like, just tell them the fucking answer. That's what they want to hear. And really good SEOs, they're good at that, right? Like when I come to your page and I'm looking something up, like what are today's mortgage rates? I don't want to hear about why your website is so great, who you are. Just tell me what the rate is. And so I think there are some correlations there, but understanding your customer is another big one, and understanding what questions they're actually asking and not just relying on keyword tools as an example to tell you what people are searching for.
Yeah, and I also think that there's kind of, for some reason, a lot of people in SEO and agencies and freelancers don't ask the client for their keywords, right? They just go and start doing keyword research without any basis on the actual business. And there's so many specific terminologies and words and jargon and things that people use in various industries that if you don't know that ahead of time, then actually you're just making your campaign significantly more difficult. So in general, if you can fully understand the niche that you're going into or understand the business that you're working with, and even if that is just half an hour of asking the business owner questions, then you're giving yourself a quite big leg up in comparison to most other agencies or freelancers. So
for sure.
So choosing going down the route of actually choosing a niche, did you choose your niche? So I know that you sold your barbecue niche site for a pretty nice payout. Did you choose your niche based on a passion or a hobby, or did you choose it based on a specific one that you'd gone out and found?
Yeah, so I looked at three different niches that I was going to get into, and then started comparing those with the data. So it kind of combined a hobby with data backed, knowledge. Like, hey, I can actually go make money with this and have fun while doing it. So a little combination of both.
Yeah. So in the future, if you were going to do it again, and I'm sure you are going to do it again, right? Would you be going down the hobby route again, or are you going to go and pick another niche that would be 100% on its own?
Yeah, I think that I'll do both. I'll go a route that's 100% money focused and my face just won't be on it, and just go make a shit ton of money while the opportunity is still there. And then have another site that is more, branded with me and I can actually send traffic from, like a personal branding and all of that. I think there's a ton of benefit there as well. So yeah, I'll probably do both, but keep the money making machine on the side and not tell anybody about it.
Yeah, I like keeping things anonymous that are making you tons of money, right? Like,
For sure.
don't go sharing it off to the world. So you've spoken a lot actually in the past about being hit by algorithm updates, or at least dealing with algorithm update hits. How have you dealt with them yourself, and especially with the recent ones that have kind of wreaked havoc on a lot of niche site owners? Have you got any recommendations for dealing with algorithm updates for those kind of people?
Yeah, so in the past, I was really fortunate with some really early on that it didn't really have too big of an impact um, on those sites. And then it just happened like when I sold this one, the day we sold is the day the helpful content update rolled out. And the site got crushed, which sucks. And I'm still trying to help them out. But the thing when in the past where I did have to deal with it and there were like small hits is I think the number one thing to do is just to wait. Like let the whole thing roll out, let it end and still wait a little bit longer. Like find out what's actually going on and take yourself and your feelings out of it and really step back and analyze your site. I think as a natural pessimist, I'm also really good at realizing like when my content is shit versus the competitors. And so taking that time to step back and really analyze, I think helps. And you could potentially spot trends of things like, hey, here's actually what I need to do, or here's what these sites are doing that are beating me, and maybe I can, steal a little bit from them. So
Yeah,
that's the big thing. Yeah, it's just waiting and then analyzing, and I think just removing yourself from it.
yeah, I 100% agree. The amount of people that I've got on calls with, and they're like, "Oh, my site is really, really good," and then they're like, "Well," and I'm like,
Right.
that's the
Same.
issue right there. You do know
Yeah.
deep down that it's not 100%,
Yeah.
and that it's just trying to kind of build up that quality right at the end of the day and trying to build to it.
Yeah.
So I want
For
to try and
sure.
get onto your link building tiles. So I know a lot of people don't actually know that you even do link building, or that know that you have done it in
Yeah.
the past, right? And that they
Yeah.
probably associate the fact that you have worked with these large websites that you're just doing like on page and technical, and there's no kind of other additional work, right? So what have been your most successful and effective kind of link building strategies?
Yeah. So I see like like at Forbes and some of the other sites, they're doing like digital PR and really like, paying for surveys and really getting to understand the customers and all of that and putting out these really good studies, and they're just naturally winning links, right? They're doing outreach for that, and that's always going to be good. But that's not always the case for smaller sites. The most effective was when I was, kind of freelancing and doing a little bit, and I had, you know, was able to write blogs for these other posts for these other sites that had really good, domain authority. And I would put up Haro queries and get, really good responses back and actually give links to those folks on those other sites. And sometimes I would ask in exchange that they would link to my smaller barbecue site. And so it was never like a link swap, and I never required it, but I would always ask because now I've got, contact information for this person who's got, a DR60 site. Might as well ask, shoot my shot. So I tried that a lot and won a lot of links that way. Traditional Haro actually pitching people is a lot easier than people think if you are like competent and not just spamming people. If you just take the time to answer the queries, you can win some. But then also just doing, tiered backlinks. We do quite a bit of tier 2, tier 3 stuff on other sites, and it's definitely the safest route in my opinion. And I know a lot of people don't think it is, and they think it's a little scary doing that. But to me, I feel like it's the safest and effective.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I actually really like Haro, and have been using it for a few years. And I've been trying to find alternatives because I think it has been getting spammed. And I think that just you can have the highest quality response in the world, but the fact that it has 1,000 responses means that it gets buried, right? So it's if you can try and have as many alternatives as possible. And I've actually been working with I hired a guy in 2017, I think it was. He was a journalist. He had like a journalist background, and I was like, "Hey, you've just been let go from your job. Why don't you just give pitching at Harrow a try? Right? You're a journalist. You're pitching to other journalists. Let's see your success rate, right?" And he had an 80% success rate because he knows how to speak to journalists, right? And like he knows what they want to see. And I was like, holy, like none of our guys have got anywhere near that level. But it's literally just knowing how to communicate with them and having that kind of PR and press training. I think really actually is kind of levels ahead of most people in approaching it. And like you said, I think a lot of people fail basically at trying to do it, and that means that they associate it with being bad, even though it's just that no, your work was bad, not the actual platform itself.
For sure. I guess real quick question, like, are there any like quick takeaways that you learned from him that other people could use? Like what are those nuances?
I'm trying to remember all of them because he spent hours and hours with James Gregory, who was another guy that I was working with at the time, and those two would just be at each other the whole time, like working on the campaigns. I remember specifically that he would say that journalists wanted you to basically immediately answer their topic with who you were. So because a lot of people would answer the topic, but the journalists don't care about the actual answer. They care about who's answering it most of the time, which is quite interesting. So a lot of the time they don't want some random intern or a PR or whatever. They want like the CEO, even if it's not actually the CEO answering it, right? There's all sorts of stuff like that. And then there's additional stuff around like facts and data and highlighting points and like trying to make it so that you stand out with structured formatting and loads of things like that, right? But you just get into like the longevity. I think that the surface level stuff was being quick to answer the query, so that you make sure that you're replying to the emails as soon as they come in, because you get the 3 emails per day, and then also make it and also replying within the platform itself, and also having the ability to actually use the same language as journalists, right? So a lot of journalists, when they have like internal communications or when they're sharing between other journalists, they have their own lingo and the exact same stuff we said earlier with like jargon and technical stuff. Knowing that gives you superpowers, right? Because you can know how to speak to people in the industry. And so, like I said, if you already know a niche, you kind of have the ability to have all their knowledge and stuff. You don't have to do that additional research that so many people do on top of it. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of potential if you have got some level of media training on top of being an SEO, because most people don't, and they don't know how to handle and speak with journalists and other PR agencies and all sorts of stuff like that. So I want to kind of ask you one final question, which is, how the hell do you handle all of this, right? Because you have a full-time job, you manage websites, you have a personal brand in SEO that you do interviews with, like me, and you have a massive family, right? Like, so in comparison to most people, right? Like, I'm not saying that you have some 100 kids or something. You have a pretty big family in comparison to most people in the modern age, at least. How do you handle all of this, including all the activities and stuff you must be doing with all your families at the same time, right?
Yeah, so I compartmentalize really well. You know, getting up because we just moved, our kids were homeschooled and it was way easier because I could just get up, start working, right? And then they kind of do their own thing with my wife and she would kind of lead their homeschool and all that. But now that they're in, like we just moved and they're in schools, like I get up, get the older kids up, take them to school, hit the gym, come back, start working, and then I'm just working, right? And then 5, 6 o'clock hits and I'm done. I'm usually either cooking dinner or I'm going to be helping clean up dinner, just doing those things around the house, spending time with the family. And then once bedtime hits, it's time to log back on and do my own thing, and working on the site. And so I try, especially more now that the kids are getting a little older, to not work on the weekends at all, which used to be like my grind time. I'd spend a lot of time working then. So now it's just, all devoted to them. So I think just kind of blocking off my calendar and, really sticking to it has definitely helped.
Yeah, and I think it's a great role model as well to set, to be honest, to the kids as well, because a lot of parents they get frustrated after work as well. They get like, they don't like you just said, they don't compartmentalize and they let the work frustrations bleed over to family life. And I think that can be very detrimental to your entire life altogether, right? Not only your work life, but also your family. And then you just create this pressure and stress and everything. And I honestly don't know how more people haven't exploded. Genuinely, like I just meet these people and it feels like they're just bottles of stress, right? Like it's like in any moment they're just going to blow over. So I fully endorse your lifestyle considering how much you've got going on and how chilled out you are, because that's amazing and it speaks volumes to your character. So I appreciate you coming on and I look forward to hopefully meeting up in person one day. Hopefully I'll be doing an event in the US next year or potentially coming through to one of the other US events. And then at some point we should be able to do another call as well. And I appreciate you coming on. So I'll see you in the next one.
Of course, sounds good. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe in down below, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.